Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us on the webinar today. As Anne introduced, my name is Bo DeBoer. I'm a staff archaeologist at Cultural Resource Analysts, Inc., and I also serve as the Vice Chair of Education and Training on the Small Business Community of Interest, which is responsible for the webinar today. The mission of the Small Business COI is to promote the role and relevance of small business and SAME through outreach, training, opportunity, and recognition. The Small Business COI is committed to keeping SAME members informed with the most up-to-date information from the world of small business. We inform SAME of technical programs of interest to small business members, provide opportunities to meet with key military decision makers, represent small business interests on select SAME national committees, keep members informed on small business regulations and legislation, and provide opportunities to highlight small business success stories and lessons learned. We also regularly send out an electronic newsletter to help you stay ahead of the latest trends and take advantage of current developments and growth in partnerships. Look for the latest newsletter to be released soon. Also, if you're interested in getting more information about the small business community activities, please visit the COI webpage. In an effort to engage the small business community and other members of SAME, and with the new federal government fiscal year beginning next week, as well as the nearing SAME Small Business Conference in Dallas from November 20th to the 22nd, now is an opportune time to set your business apart with an updated capability statement. This webinar would not be possible without our presenter, Jackie Santisteban, and I would like to sincerely thank her for her participation and support of SAME and the small business community. I would also like to thank each of you for joining us today. I'm looking forward to the presentation and our Q&A sessions. As Anne noted, each of you are encouraged to send your questions in the chat box as they arise. And I'd now like to introduce our speaker, Jackie Santisteban. Jackie is President and Senior Consultant of Government Sales Advisors. She specializes in helping businesses of all sizes establish and grow the DoD market segment for their product or service. With over 20 years of DoD sales and marketing experience, as well as 23 years as a naval officer, both active and reserve, Ms. Santisteban has directed over 80 companies successfully managing the transition into the DoD market. She develops and implements sales and marketing plans, trains client sales teams, uncovers opportunities, and assists her clients in winning incremental government business. Without further ado, I will pass the presentation over to Jackie.
This is Anne. I think we're having a little bit of a technical difficulty getting Jackie unmuted, so I'm going to work on that for a moment. And thank you all for your patience. Bo, perhaps you can remind folks about the upcoming Small Business Conference while we're waiting and some of the features.
Sure, I'd be happy to. As I mentioned earlier, the Small Business Conference is in Dallas this year. It'll be from November 20th to the 22nd, and hopefully all of you will be attending. I'll be there, and I'm certainly looking forward to it. And it'd be a pleasure to meet any of you that I've not met before. In addition to the conference, the networking roundtable function, for those of you that aren't aware of that, is a great option to meet with potential primes, things like that, for future opportunities. So certainly would want to, once that opens up, register and reach out to some of the firms that you may be interested in working with in the future, as well as agencies. So yeah, certainly something to keep in mind.
Jackie, do we have you? Okay. I'm going to try something else. I apologize to everyone. I do show she is connected to the audio, so not sure what's going on here. Let's see.
While you're looking into that further, Anne, I thought I'd also take the opportunity to let people know that should they have a webinar topic they may like to present, or would a subject matter they'd be interested in seeing, I'd like to invite them to feel free to contact me and share what it is they might either be interested in presenting or seeing presented, because we're always looking for content for future webinars that may be of interest to the SAME membership.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great point. And we do have a couple upcoming ones that are being presented by the GSA, I believe that, Bo, you connected us with them.
Yes.
Did it go through now?
Oh, there she is.
All right.
Hooray.
Hooray.
All right, take it away, Jackie.
Okay. I want to thank SAME and the SAME Small Business Community of Opportunity Committee for allowing me to give this presentation this afternoon. I realize it's always a little difficult when it's 1 o'clock, it's after lunch, and it's a really beautiful fall day, but I think this is important information and will be helpful to all of you in either updating or actually writing a capability statement to take with you to a small business conference. So I want to also thank the 4 businesses that sent their capability statements in ahead of time. So I had a chance to look at them, and a couple of them we actually did some work on and did some before and after, so that you guys could all see, real-time, real business capability statements. So yes, you kind of ask yourself, why would you get excited about a capability statement? And I actually do, because I think small business has a lot to offer, and sometimes they don't know who to talk to or what to say to people when they see them. So writing a capability statement gives you that opportunity to really sit back and see what your business does and does well, and it helps you in your marketing efforts. So let's make it captivating and different so you do get noticed. So why have a capability statement? Again, you're trying to set your business apart from others. Most people have capability statement, not all, but pretty much every conference I've gone to, whether it's government people, especially contracting people or small business, they always say that the one thing they look at is a capability statement. And on that capability statement, they want to know what's different and what sets that company apart. So it's like a resume. If you're looking for a job, you want to be noticed, correct? You want the ability to have that first interview, because that's really what it does. It basically gets you an interview, and then at that point, it's up to you to market it well and to build a relationship. But I think even more importantly, it helps your team understand better really what does set you apart or what you do well, and also it kind of gives you focus, because some companies do their capability statement and they're kind of all over the map, and they have like 20 different things that they can do and 15 NICS codes, and reality is they probably only have those just because they have them. So try to narrow it down and then see what you really do well and what you really want to focus on. So it basically gives you focus, and it helps you with your message. The other reason is basically because everybody's got one for them. Well, not everybody. It's like my kids used to always say, well, everybody's going to prom and staying in a hotel. And I would always say, well, not everybody, because you aren't. But so most companies do have a capability statement, good or bad. And it is actually one of your best marketing tools. It's a lead in. It's something you can hold in your hand to show people, something that you can send them later. So it's an important document. So what do you need to get started? The biggest thing you need is time. And it's so important to take that time. I realize people are busy, and especially when you're a small business, you're getting started or you're trying to grow. You just don't want to take that time because you think, well, we'll put a few things together and that's good enough. It isn't. It's important to take that time and to truly focus on it and to do it really well. It's sort of magical. You start out with just all these ideas, and then you put it all together and it really flows and it looks good. And you want people. You need people. You're definitely going to want to work with at least one other person or possibly more. of your colleagues so you can brainstorm. And it might take 4 or 5 times to actually brainstorm and edit before you have your final copy that you're happy with. And you should also research. You want to know what your government customers buy and who do they buy from and why do they buy from them. So the important thing is know your competition. If you can get a hold of a copy of their capability statement, that's a nice to have thing. And you can look at that and see what they're doing and say, well, I can do that better. And then, you can use that for your capability statement. And creativity. I don't think you never want it to look like everybody else's if possible. So pick up a few when you go to a trade show, look at them, and then see what you like and don't like about them regarding format or colors and so forth. And then try to be creative and try to make yours look better or different. It's similar to the capability statement, or it's often called a CAP statement. It's similar to a resume for your company, like I said. And on that resume, excuse me, I have a few little allergy issues going on today. It provides essential information to your customers or your teaming partners. So remember, what do you want them to know? What do you think is the most essential thing that they need to know? And it's really your time to shine. And it is okay to brag a little. We're often told you're not supposed to brag. Well, that's okay. When you do something really well, it's not bragging. It's just making that information known to people that you want to deal with and work with. And it helps explain to the government customer why they should buy from you. Because again, there might be 20 people going after the same chunk of business and the same dollar amount. And the government's going to say, well, why should I buy from you? Because I've been buying from Joe Smith for the last 10 years and the other guy looks like he can do it. But you want to have something in there that explains to that government customer, that contracting officer, program manager, whoever you're dealing with, why they should buy from you. It's also a document that can help your company see things from the customer's perspective. So I want you to step back for a moment and think, if I were that customer, why would I want to buy from me? What is it that would be different? Or what is it that isn't even necessarily different, but good? And why would they, if I'm a customer, why do I want to look at this particular company? And so it becomes a concise overview of your qualifications and experience. Your experience is an important thing to put on here because that's always critical. They always look at past performance. And so that's going to be a really critical part of your capability statement. So to be effective, you want to, again, speak to the customer directly. Look at what they need. Talk to them. I mean, if you can meet with them ahead of time. I have a client that I've been working with for a while. They do solar energy, and they didn't have a capability statement at the beginning, and because they were so new and they hadn't really done any work with the government, and we had some meetings initially, probably about 5 or 6 meetings, and from those meetings we learned more about what the customer needed, and we were able to sit down and start and compile all this information and use that for the capability statement. If you can't do that, you can go online, look at their websites, look at what they're buying, if they tell you what they do. All those things are really critical. Again, that research is critical in doing your capability statement if you want it to be effective. And you absolutely want it to be dynamic. So format it so you can quickly change it and tailor it to if it's an agency, a government agency, or a prime contractor, or the government, an actual DoD customer. And it's always nice to have one specific one for each of these customers. That's ideal. I'm a realist. I'm pretty sure that most people are lucky to get one. Although again, I think if you get that one and you have that formatted so you can just make minor changes, you're more likely to make those changes and customize it for each of your customers. it should be simple, but it should never be more than 2 pages front and back. And one of the things that I think is really important, and I've heard this several times from government employees, government people, they want to be able to read it without their reading glasses. A lot of government people, especially in the agencies, are at the age where they need reading glasses, and they don't always have them close by. So make sure that your font and your lettering and everything is big, large enough and bright enough so that people can see it without needing their reading glasses. Also want to make sure you have a digital copy as well as printed. Printed is great to hand out. The digital is great to follow up with. And then when you are small business offices like to see the digital copy, or if you're looking at RFPs, again, you can use your digital capabilities statement to send in. So when you tailor it to your specific customer or your agency, you want to make sure to use their language. And again, how are you going to find that? You could look on the procurement if there's an RFP that's out, or you can look at past procurements and see how they word what they're looking for, rather than using the internal way that you're used to of describing your products and services, because they might not always match up. What you think they're looking for might be totally different than what they think they're looking for. So try to match those requirements as much as you can when you're writing this. And that I'm a realist. That's not always easy to do, but try to do it. And again, you can sometimes get that information off their websites or different presentations that they do. And I know it sounds like work, but it's totally worth it in the end. And then you're going to try to match or complement. Your differentiators will either match or complement your core competencies. So take time, make sure you understand what your core competencies are. A lot of the companies I've worked with, when I ask them, so what are your core competencies? Well, number one, some of them don't know what that means. And the others are like, they just really struggle to figure that out. They know what they do, but they don't think of it necessarily as a core competency. So when you're doing that whole thing, that matching up your differentiator and your core competencies will bring out that clear message that you want to send to your government customer as to why they want to do business with you. Past performance is really important. That's another thing I often hear from contracting officers or anybody that we meet with. Who are your other government customers? What have you done with them for them? So make sure that your past performance on your CAP statement matches or complements your core competencies. You actually want this past performance to show that you could do the work, you've done it before, and you had really good outcomes. So that past performance, spend some time on that. That's an important thing. And you don't have to put everything that you did. Some companies do that. I swear they put every project they've had. Pick your projects that most closely match what the government customer is looking for. And if you're, again, tailoring and customizing this CAP statement. And then also the ones that you feel you've had the most success with. Maybe your customers have been really, really happy with you and you've had a great outcome. So those are the ones that you're going to want to put on your CAP statement. Try to keep it between 4, I always say 4 and 6 is a good number for everything, no more than 6. The components of your capability statement are pretty simple. You start at the top of your capability statement, at the top of that piece of paper or that document or that digital copy, you're going to write the words in caps. You're going to put capability statement across the top. Company profile, you're going to have a little paragraph on that. And then I want you to include the cage code, NICS, DUNS number, and any contract vehicles you might have. You can also include if you're a small business or your 8A, and I apologize, I actually forgot to put that on here. So include that, but don't make that front and center. What the contracting officer is really looking for is a cage code, the nicks and the duns. The whole thing about doing this is to try to make their life easier. So they want to do business with you. They want to look at you when they have a procurement coming up. So then the third section will be your core competencies or your capabilities. Then your next section down from that is going to be your differentiators. And then typically have people put it on the back. You can do it any way you want, but I like to see the past performance on the back side, because you usually need a little bit more room for that. And it just, again, kind of sets that part apart from the rest of it. So they're initially looking at you as a company, what you're capable of, what makes you different, and then on the back, you're proving all those things. Under your company profile, it's always good to put, when it was founded, who founded the company, your legal structure. You can also put in there the number of years of experience of the founder or your staff. I would definitely try to include, if you can, the number of years of experience, because government tends to see a lot of small businesses that they want to do business with, and then 2 years later, they're out of business. So they oftentimes want to know that you're well established and can actually do the business. Now, that's not to say because you're brand new, you shouldn't try to do business with the government. You should, but you can kind of work around that with your years of experience, because likely somebody who started a company has 20 years experience doing something else. So it's not always just years of experience with the government, it's years of experience, period. And there you can put your purpose, or if you have a company mission, that's a nice thing to put in there. And then if you can figure out your most important differentiator and somehow weave that into there with your company profile, and that's a good thing to do. If you can't, that's not to worry about that, but I think you'd be surprised to find out that you actually can weave it in there. Your core competencies they can be your services offered, your products, your solutions. Those are typically the things that you're going to put under your core competencies. Again, try to limit it to 4 or 6 things that you do really well and what business that you really want to go after. I've had clients, I had an IT client that I really enjoyed working with them. They were awesome, but they did not have they thought they had a capability statement, but it was like 12 pages of basically talking about that they were an 8A, small woman-owned business, went into all their contract information. And I'm like, at the end of it, I just said to her, I don't even know what you do. I don't know what you're really capable of. So what are you capable of? And she's kind of like, well, we'll go after any business we can find. And I said, no, you really need to focus. I want you to focus and really look at what you do well and what you truly are competent of doing, because you're a small company. You can't do all this. There's no way you can do all this. And number one, nobody's going to read all this. And it looks like you've done a lot, but it doesn't focus, and you need to have that focus. So make sure when you're doing core competencies, that's truly focused on what you can and want to do. And I apologize if some of this sounds repetitive, but it's interesting. It's really difficult to get my clients to sit down and look at that, because you just do it every day. It's what you do. And it's often hard to put that on a piece of paper, often hard to describe it. So that's why it takes time and focus. And it's just not something a lot of people have time, don't have that time, but make that time. So your differentiators, again, why choose us? What makes you different? It can be, I really think it's important to look at things like what's in today's, political climate even. So the solar company, one of the things that I personally had not thought about, and I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday about the company, and he's like, you need to include climate change in there. And I thought, I kind of thought in my head that we were describing that because it's hurricane resistant, it's the solar wrap's high enough so it's basically the flooding doesn't affect it. But I never thought of that word climate change, because what are they looking for? They're looking for the resiliency and the sustainability in this age where we clearly are seeing climate change. So when you're thinking about your differentiators, look at stuff like that, like what's going on in the world right now. What would make things better, and what do we need to do to make it better? And that can be your differentiator, but describe it as such. Try to use those not necessarily political words, but words that you're seeing in the news where your product or your service or your solution is the answer for those problems. And so what advantage does your company have? Maybe you're located globally, or maybe you have global services. And another one that's really super important is local support. There's so often they look for local support. So do you have that right now? Maybe not, but make sure that you have that ability to have local service when you're actually get that contract award. The other thing might be your advantage is that you offer a warranty, a 10-year warranty or 15. Everybody else offers a 1-year warranty. Or you teach people how to install product themselves, and you're always available. 24/7, you have someone available. Or you are very small. You're a very niche organization, and whatever you do is specific to a certain area, and so you can do that certain area. You're this niche company. And any operational highlights that you've had, you can put those in. And I know that sounds very repetitive, and I apologize, but again, are those differences what the customer needs? And then they usually are. So when you're going through this, you're going to figure that out. Your past performance, I want you to spend quite a bit of time on that. I think that's critical and important. Again, typically we'll go on the back page, and we're going to show you some examples later of the ones that were sent in and some of the changes we made. And if anybody needs more examples or samples of CAP statements, I'd be happy to email those to you so you have a chance to look at how they're formatted, and especially the past performance. The IT company that I worked with that I truly just loved their CAP statement when we were done. It looked really good. What we did with that one is we put the problem, solution, and impact. And that's a really nice thing to have. That makes it really clear to the government. So you're going to put your client or your customer's name, and it could be a prime. Maybe you subcontracted to a prime. One of the big primes. Government looks for that as well, and other primes look for that. Who have you subcontracted with before? It's important to put the project name. The date of the award for sure, and if it's ongoing, or if it was, from 2012 to 2017, you can put that. If it just was awarded in 2018, you can put it awarded in FY 2018 for 5 years. If it's a large contract or even a small, I think it's important to put the dollar value. You don't have to, but it oftentimes makes it clear then to the government customer that, yeah, I can handle a $10 million award or an $80 million award. And I can also handle a $50,000 award. It really shows the scope of your business and what you can do. And if all you ever work with are small awards, that's fine too. But that's up to you you don't have to put that. It's just a nice to put. If it's a federal contract, they like to see the contract number, and again, the date when it was completed. And when you put that, if it is a complete project and you are lucky enough to get a testimonial or someone is willing to share some comments, it's really nice to put those in as well. You could, just in one or two sentences, include that and add that. When you're doing this is, to me, the most important thing that you're going to be doing on your past performance. You're going to put the problem, you're going to use those words. Put the problem, let's say Again, let's look at the solar company. They had Tyndall Air Force Base went through a hurricane and they pretty much lost all their lighting. So the problem was that they lost all their lighting in this hurricane. The solution, let's say that this company that I'm working with gets this award. The solution was that they were able to offer street lighting that did not require a power grid, did not require the wiring and conduit that you normally get, and the impact of that solution. The impact was that it lowered their cost. It also meant the lights run even if there's a power outage, and that cyber attacks couldn't attack at least the street lights. So those type of situations are really good to include. So they makes it really clear to them. So again, you set it up in that 3 parts for them. You're also going to want to, at the end of it, this is where I usually like to see it. You put on the back of the second page where you've got your past performance, that's where you're going to put your company information, your registrations, your certificates, all the licensures, anything that you think they're going to want to see. A lot of them forget to put that they actually accept credit cards or purchase cards, government purchase cards. That's a big, big thing. Do you do electronic billing? If so, you can include that. Here's a really good one, the security clearances that your company has, if they have them. And if they don't have them, if you have a partner that you had that has them, I would include that. You just would indicate that it's the partner that has it. And here, if you want to add the years of experience that your team members have, if you feel like that's important and critical, I would put that in that information as well. Be sure you put contact information for the person or people that your government customer is going to be working with. So you can put it either, I usually have people put it at the bottom of each page. But if you don't have room for that, I would put it at the bottom of the second page, and it's the name and then the title. I would not put CEO or president, just because you want the government, again, the government likes to know that they're special and that you deal with them. They don't really care about your hotel customer or any other customer that you've done construction with. They want to know the government piece. So they want to know that this person that they're talking to works with the government. So you could put government business development manager or executive. But with their name, let's say they're an engineer, you can include their the PE after their name, but make sure the title says that they're the one that they're going to go to learn more about the company when they have questions. I put the address of the company, or you can put if it's a sales rep, they can put their address, and then the email and the phone number. And make sure that's phone numbers that they can get a hold of you. And so if you want to leave your cell phone, most people do now, that's great. You can put office and cell. If you want to put a fax number, you can, although to be honest, I'm pretty sure people don't use fax much anymore, but government probably does. So you can put the fax number as well. Here's some tips that are helpful. I have an Apple, I have a Mac, so I don't usually use the PC products, but most government people do. So you're going to want to make sure that whatever you're using is what they're using. So Microsoft Publisher is a little bit easier to use than Word. And if you're going to do your boxes and your columns and so forth, and you are, to make it interesting, it usually looks better, more clean if you use boxes and columns. And then there's low-cost photos that you can find on iStock Photo, Shutterstock, Flickr.com. But I think it's always best to use pictures of your own projects. But if you're going to use a picture of a project, make sure that picture means something. Don't just put a picture of a building, because that could be anybody's building, and it really doesn't give your customer any information about what you did or what your project was. You could even, if you can, and again, keep these pictures small. You're not going to have a big picture. You could put the before and after. Let's say it's a building that you demolished. You can put the picture of the process while you're demolishing it, and then put a picture later of the new building that went up. But then I would label it and make sure that they know and understand where that was done, where that project was. There's also industry models such as slideshare.net and docs.net, and continuously update it. You don't want to have a picture that's, 20 years ago you did a certain project. I would do within the last 2 to 3 years if you can. Try to keep it current and up to date. And this is a big one for me. This is the most important thing, I think, is to print it on high quality cardstock or glossy paper, because you want to look professional. Again, I go to conferences quite a bit, and you go to the exhibit hall, and you see some that are like, oh my God, they look so tacky. They're just printed off their own home printer and on regular paper, printer paper. And I always say to myself, man, if they don't care enough to make it look good, what kind of project did they, what kind of job did they do on the project? They probably don't care a whole lot, or their company's not very important to them. Or it just reeks like bad. Small, doesn't care, that kind of thing. So if you're gonna, I know money, especially for a small business, is oftentimes not real prevalent, but if you're gonna invest in anything, invest in that to make it look good. And it's really nice if you've got a sales sheet and then your capability statement, and you can put those in a folder. That looks really nice to have that as well. And then I recommend only printing a few at a time. Don't print 500 or 1,000, because you are going to change it, or hopefully you're going to change it and update it, and you're also going to customize it. So just print them as needed, maybe 25, 50 max, and then you can always go have them reprinted if you need more. And when you can afford it, I would recommend a professional graphic designer. It just gives it a really nice, professional, crisp look. But if you've got somebody in-house that can do it and do a good job, go for it. Don't spend your money on them. But if it's a luxury that you have, I would recommend it. So, and you want to make sure that your colors and your fonts and your key phrases are going to align with your website and your business cards. So you want to make sure that it's branding. You want everything to flow. It makes a huge difference. Again, it makes you look professional, makes you look capable. And that's an important one, to have all the colors and so forth flow. And don't add any unnecessary punctuation. I'm bad at that. I'm always putting periods at the end of a statement, and it doesn't need to be there. You don't need to add that. And make sure that your punctuation is correct and accurate, and your grammar is correct and accurate. And you only underline for web and email addresses. And here's kind of an important one. The email address should be the same as your domain name. So if you're a new startup and really small business and you don't have a domain name yet, go ahead and buy one. And then make sure that your email address is the same. You don't want a sales rep that has an email with a gmail.com or google.com or any of those that are free, because it just looks like, it just doesn't look good. And again, you want to look professional. I recommend a proofreader. Could be someone within your company, and then I would also recommend that you have someone outside your company look at it. And then there's online proofreaders such as Grammarly.com. That's a good one, but definitely make sure you have a proofreader. And if there are any questions, I'd love to take those now.
We do have one question, Jackie, that came in over our chat. If anyone else has a question at this time, please do use the chat functionality in the GoToMeeting toolbar. So this one came in. We have been told our security clearance info on a cap statement is a no-no and even runs afoul of DSS rules. Is this true?
That's a really good question, and I've seen it, and a lot of them ask for it. but if you're told not to do it, don't do it. I can look that up and get back to you. That's a good question. I've seen it on several of them.
Excellent. Another question has come in. If you are in a mentor-protege relationship, should you highlight it in your capability statement or have a separate one for the mentor-protege JV, or both?
I would say you should have both, but for sure, I would absolutely highlight that on my CAP statement. And if you want to have a second one, just talking about that, that's fine. That's a great thing to do. But those are really good programs. And I know Air Force and Army both look at those a lot. So I would for sure put that on your CAP statement. Those are good questions.
Great. Yes, great questions. We've got another one here. Is the differentiator the same as your brand?
No. And you're gonna, no. I don't see it as the same at all. And again, you're gonna have a list of, branding is like you're branding your whole product. Unless I'm understanding you incorrectly, that's how I see it. Your differentiators are, what do you do differently? Do you work 24/7? Are you always available? Do you have more experience than your competitors? Do you have more engineers that work for your company than everybody else does? Those are the type of differentiators that you want to have.
Okay, great. At this time, those are the only questions that have come in, and we've got about 20 minutes left, so let's move along.
All right. I thought it would be interesting to ask some of my clients, or what, and this again is unfortunately the one CAP statement I couldn't use as an example. I really wanted to, but she literally told me that she felt it was such a differentiator that she did not want it shown so that other people would copy it. I just thought she did a great job on it. We spent days working on it and trying to get it just right. And then she did have the luxury of going to a professional graphic designer, so that made a difference. But I asked her some questions like, what do you feel that once you had a capability statement, what did it do for you? And she said it was a professional marketing tool, which it should be. And it clarified things for her. And they helped the clients that she was pursuing know what they could expect from them. And it was interesting when I was working with her, I kept asking, what is it you do well? And she said, we have, and it literally took probably 3 meetings for her to really figure this out, but they had a model for staffing and pricing that really no one else had, but it's what they did. So they didn't think of that as being as different as it truly was. And she said also that she realized the importance of crafting that message that you want to convey to your audience. And like she said, initially they just took samples of CAP statements and kind of went with that and didn't really think about it much. But she said once she stepped back and thought about it from the customer's perspective, that's when you really need to look at what the customer needs. And she felt that detail wasn't overlooked. She said it helped them get a second look, and that was is our differentiator. She also said that she felt it sent them to their website, which was important. And now after she redid everything, their website, again, her business card, her CAP statement, and her website all flowed and all looked the same, and it looked so nice. It was like night and day, complete difference. So I worked with 2 of the 4 that were sent in. Sarah with DMCSI said it allowed me to step back and looked at it from the customer's perspective, but she also realized that it was a working document and that they need to change it, whenever necessary. A lot of times people think about, oh, I'm done with it now. When it's going to fit everything, it doesn't. If they need to be changed, they need to be customized. But when you set it up so that your format is easy to do that, it won't be as challenging or as time consuming as it sounds. And Tiffany with Prairie Engineers said, working with the consultant to help us take our company's capability statement to the next level. It challenged the team and took us out of our comfort zone, which is really true, that sometimes you just get so used to what you're doing that you don't think about it. And it would also help them, this particular company, to organize their information into a clear, concise document. And that was very helpful to them. Oh, we got that a second time, twice. Oh, there we go. So what are you going to do with your capability statement? You're going to use it as a marketing tool at trade shows, networking events. Be sure you bring copies. This is important. Bring copies to this SME Small Business Conference. And if you're participating in the networking roundtables, send it in advance. They'd like to have that, so when they've seen it ahead of time, they know a little bit about you. And then also bring another copy with you to hand to them on site. And they will ask for it, so it'll be important to have that. And I think I said this before, I think it's good to mail it to the DoD small business specialist or agency small business specialist, or if you meet them at, I'm sure a lot of them will be exhibiting at the conference, make sure you give them a capability statement. A lot of them will ask for it. And I don't know how many of you do this, but it's important. Include it on your website. Actually have a tab up at the top that will say that it's your capability statement. Some people have it, but it's kind of buried in with all the other information. You're trying to make this as easy for the government customer as possible. So if it's a contracting officer, they're going to know where it is and they're going to know what to look for. And then it's a good thing to have for follow-up meetings, and after you have a meet with customer meeting or a partner or a prime, and actually send that out to them. One of my clients uses that a lot, and it's been very successful. Here's some of the samples that we have. Prairie Engineering sent this to me, and well, it was lovely. It just, there we go, perfect. Just looked like it was busy, a lot of information on there. So Tiffany and I spent a few hours. She went back to her team several times, and we tried to figure out a way to, kind of pare everything down and just make it easier to read and give the information that the government customer would need. So the other thing it had was just a lot of pictures. And, it gave a lot of information, but it didn't give an information as to the award date, the dollar value, the problem, the solution, any of that. So we worked for a few times and changed it. I think the colors on this are beautiful. I really like it. I love their logo. It was important for the owner of the company to make sure that she had her picture, and that's fine. I think that's great. And we just kind of pared down some of it, like before, and now they have the DUNS code and the, you can go up just a little bit, NICS or the CAGE code. And at the top now it says capability statements. So you know exactly what you're looking at. It does have a small business in 8A, but we've made that smaller, but it's still there. And then added some pictures to the core competencies. You can do that or not necessarily, but they thought that was important and I liked it. They actually pared down again the number of core competencies for each thing. Before, I think there was like 10 or 12. Now it's about 6, and it looks really nice. They did differently, where they had the logo from up on the top, the wheat. I thought that was a really nice thing to do. I believe, for some reason it didn't get changed, but usually it's what sets us apart. I think it was changed to differentiators, so that would be the differentiators. It was important then to have people know where their licensure and location was, So we kept that in and tried to make it smaller. We put the NICS codes, again, cut those down. And staff was important. She wanted people to know what they had regarding staff. So that they have the information, there's less of it, but it's a very nice format now. And then their past performance, federal project experience, I would change that to past performance. And they've got the symbols and logos for the different agencies that they've worked with. They also cut down on the number of pictures. Instead of 12, there's now 4. And it's a better look at what they do and who they did it for. And one of them that I thought was really good was the National Guard firing range, where they talked about the mission. So now they're able, because of this firing range and the changes they made, they're able to receive the valuable mission training. So that's an important one. And and another important thing in here was that they could transition quickly and seamlessly from managing one client to another during this design and construction phase. And not every small business can do that. So that was important and good. The thing I would have changed over here to the left, I would have put subcontractor instead of subconsultant. So I'd put subcontracting agreements or subcontracts. Subcontracts is how I would have titled that. And they did not put dollar value, which is fine. It would have been helpful, but it's not necessarily. If again, it's up to you if you don't want it. One of the things that changed before, Tiffany did not have a title. She now has a title. And so those contacts are there. It's clear who they want to who you want to talk to, who works with federal, and I think it looks really good now. So, again, probably a few changes they'll still need to be made, but I think it was a big difference. This was another one. This was DMCSI. Although it looked nice, it did look good, but one of the things that I think people do is they read from left to right. So this was, a lot of chunks. So we changed it and made it easier so it'd be elongated as opposed to so boxy. And also the business contact at the top did not have a title, and that's important. NICS codes weren't up there. Did have capability statements. So again, it looked nice, but just a few changes made it look better and easier for the. So these are the changes we made. We put government business contact, so they knew that. The DUNS, NICS, and cage code are at the top, so it's easy for the contracting officer. It's they put the information. One of the things that was really critical and important was the projects on time and within budget. And I felt like that's kind of a buzzword to hear that all the time, and it should be expected, but it is important to them. So we left that in there and put that there. They put a very critical thing that they felt was probably the most important thing that stood out with their company was their safety, quality, and meeting deadlines as being a core value and a core competency. So we highlighted that. And then, changed the little minions. Key differentiators here were the 40 years. So I thought that was really good. And the other thing as we talked and we kind of went back and forth, kept coming up was that they get the job done right the first time. You don't have to call them again. They get it done the first time. And also that they're in Guam so that they're local to them, but yet they have employees all over the country that can take calls and help, in emergencies. So basically they're available 24/7. And we thought that was important. They didn't have quite as much government business, so we decided to actually include some of the things that were not government, which is fine, but put the government business first. And and then put the dollar value. So I think they have some good dollar values. $9.5 million contract, that's a good one, a really good one. And then they did their codes and certifications at the end. So those are good. They were fun to do. We had a couple others that were sent in that I didn't get to work on, but just wanting to see how a couple other ones look, and I would make some recommendations to those. We've got CRA. It's colorful and nice, but it didn't have, oops, it didn't have capability statement along the top. At the top, it doesn't have the NICS codes and the DUNS number and cage code, so I would make that, so that would be a recommendation. I would make less pictures, smaller pictures. I would do core competencies, and then I would do differentiators and past performance. Excuse me. They have a great geographic reach, and that's important to them, but I'd make it smaller. Probably would not include all the addresses of the states. I would just say that we're located in numerous states or numerous places in the United States. Probably wouldn't word it quite like that, but and then tell them that they could go to the website to see where they're located. Again, these pictures don't tell me where they're at or what they did. So if you're going to do a picture, I would recommend that you label it and indicate what you did there. So some changes would need to be made to that one. And I'm not sure it was actually used as a capability statement. I think it was more of a sell sheet. And then FICIT structural solutions, I would recommend basically the same thing for them. Should say capability statement along the top. You want your DUNS, cage code, and so forth. I made some recommendations to them and sent that. I would change the wording a little bit in their company profile, and you could say company profile. I would recommend that. I would move that map down because that map was confusing to me. I know what they're trying to get at, and it's important, is that they are one of the few, if only, small business that does what they do, that can do training in all 50 states. And so I really wanted them to emphasize that, so that, you know, I recommended redoing the map and making that more of a focus. And also the core competencies, kind of pare that down to like 4 to 6 and put a little bit more information on that. And then the past performance, instead of just saying Army Corps districts, they don't have differentiators. So I recommended putting differentiators in there. And past performance, make sure you are more specific as to what you did. Company data, again, who is your contact information, your contact person, I would put that there. And I think that small business award is important, so emphasize something in regard to that. If there are any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them now, or please send me an email if you have questions. And I appreciate the time today and the opportunity to present this information. And I look forward to seeing those capability statements in Dallas.
Okay, great. We do have a few questions that came in, Jackie. The first one is, shall we also carry and share our 330 Part 2 with our capabilities statement?
Well, I apologize because I don't know what that is, so I can't answer that. But I certainly could try to look it up for you.
Okay, great. Another question is, do you have an opinion on passing out a capability statement trifold at a conference instead of a 2-page sheet?
I actually kind of do, although they look nice, but things like that tend to get lost. I know a lot of companies do them thinking it looks different, and it does. You could use that more as a sell sheet and then have your capability statement, again, front and back, to look the same as your sell sheet, or, you know, look similar to your sell sheet, and just makes it easier for people to see everything.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Well, I think that we've covered all of the questions that have come in. As a reminder, this has been recorded, and you'll be able to find the recording on the SAME YouTube channel. Anyone who has registered for this, we're happy to send you an email with the link. All that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Bo in case he has any questions that he'd like to pose, and just wrap it up for us.
Thank you, Ann. There were a couple additional questions. If we have time, I thought I'd pose to Jackie. The first being, we are a construction company and basically do what every other construction company does. I don't think we have differentiators. How do I figure out what they are?
Everybody has differentiators. I know you might not think that you do, but sit down and look at what you typically do, and then look at your years of experience. Again, look at things like the climate change. Does something that your construction company do, will something that they do affect that for the better? Do you get your projects done on time every time? That's an important thing. So I'm pretty sure you've got far more differentiators than you realize it. But it does take sitting down and kind of brainstorming, and then looking at what your competition does, and then thinking about that. And again, I'm pretty sure you're going to find some differentiators and some really important ones.
Thank you. One more question. We look for most of our business on FedBizOps and bid on as many RFPs as we can handle. How could a capability statement help us with that?
The problem with FedBizOps and just responding to RFPs is that by the time they are posted on FedBizOps, they typically know who they want to do business with. We have a cyber client that I'm working with that for the past 3 years we've been trying to get their business, and it's been tough, but it was posted, and literally toward the end of it, now we knew that we were the ones that were going to get it, that the company was going to get it. And it was posted on FedBizOps, but it would have taken a long time to respond to it, and nobody would have gotten it because it was already determined. So the important thing is to get out there ahead of time, meet people at networking events or conferences, get your information out there, and have that capability statement and your sell sheets and market, and try to get business that way, and it'll be much, much more effective, and frankly less cost. And won't cost as much in the long run as it does to respond to RFPs only.
Thank you. With that, I'd like to have my closing remarks, extend a warm thank you to you, Jackie, and all of our attendees. We certainly appreciate everyone's participation and hope that this webinar has been useful and informative, and certainly look forward to seeing all of you at the Small Business Conference in Dallas. And with that, I'll leave it to Ann for her closing remarks from SAME National's office.
Thank you so much, Bo, and thank you so much, Jackie, for sharing your knowledge with us. I think that this was really helpful. I hope that everyone out there got some great tips, even if it was 1 or 2, on how you feel you can update your capability statement, make it a stronger marketing piece for you, and help you gain more business. Again, we hope to see you at the Small Business Conference coming up in just 2 months. If you haven't registered yet, we certainly encourage you to do that at your first convenience. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for your participation with SAME, and we hope you have a great afternoon.